Hey guys, it's Matt Hoots here with Sawhorse, and as a green builder, I typically don't get involved in politics. However, I do want to make sure I offer my opinion to kind of help you all, my audience, and also my clients make the right decision. So a lot of you guys know that I'm fans of certain types of cooking. Again, I do prefer one type of cooking over the others, but it's because I did a lot of research and also looked at all the facts. So I've got a clip right here from The Rising, and I chose this one over some other ones because it does try to have some different points of view in here. And then I've also got my friend Corbett Lunsford, who had an interesting take on this as well. And also just want to conclude with some testing that I've actually done on the different types of cooking appliances. And again, if you're just choosing a cooking appliance, whether you're looking at electric, induction, or gas, I prefer to choose it based on performance, and ironically, gas does not win that argument. So let's take a look at this clip, and I'll kind of put some of these things in perspective so you can understand a little bit what they're talking about.
Tap like and smash the
Ocasio-Cortez landed in hot water with conservatives earlier this week after she tweeted about the alleged dangers of gas stoves, marking a potential new frontier in the culture war. Fury over such a proposed ban on stoves was sparked Tuesday when a member of the United States Consumer Product Safety Commission told Bloomberg, in reference to indoor pollutants linked to gas stoves, quote, "This is a hidden hazard. Any option is on the table. Products that can't be made safe can be banned."
All right, so I'm gonna stop it right there. And again, I don't try to side on one political side or the other. Try to be neutral. I like to look at all the facts, come up with my own opinion. So I do have this discussion with my clients quite a bit, especially when they're looking at bringing combustion appliances inside their houses. Now, there's other combustion appliances that we really need to be talking about in addition to gas cooktops. We also have gas furnaces, and we also have gas water heaters. Admittedly, I do have all three of these in my house. I bought this house, it's a used house, and I'm trying to slowly phase this out for many reasons. One, family safety. Some of the things that came up in this report are actually accurate. It's only half the truth, though. So, yes, gas inside the house, combustion inside the house does have some chemistry. It does have some off-gassing that happens inside the house if it's improper combustion. Say if you have this not only in your range, but if you have it in your oven, sometimes you can have carbon monoxide. So there are some safety concerns when it comes to gas. So from a safety point of view, I try to get all the natural gas outside of the house. Now, does this mean that I'm anti-gas? Listen, you can use it on a grill outside the house, but any combustion and whatnot, you want to make sure that is a safe way, and you also have carbon monoxide detectors, things like that. And again, you want to make sure you use one that actually works. So the other part of this, and we'll talk about this towards the end, it's not just the off-gassing and the particulates that come off of the natural gas itself. You can have these issues when you're dealing with electric and induction at the same time. So if you don't have good ventilation with the stove, so banning gas appliances. To the right, of course. I mean, why would they not come to that conclusion that, hey, you're just after fossil fuels? And that may well be the intention. However, lost in the politics, lost in the message is the fact that when you're cooking is sometimes in some households the number one pollutant, the number one cause of bad indoor air quality in a house. So we have to look at holistically what we need to do, and we'll look a little bit about that in Corbett's video and talk about how we can deal with cooking as a whole, looking at the right type of cooking appliances for the right reason, and also make sure you have the proper ventilation. Because again, you can have an electric cooktop, not have good ventilation, and then you can have all these issues regardless.
The White House has since confirmed that President Biden does not support such an action. However, partisans on both sides of the aisle appear to have nonetheless dug their heels in. People love to be big mad. Republican Congressman Ronnie Jackson wrote on Twitter, quote, "I'll never give up my gas stove. If the maniacs in the White House come for my stove, they can pry it from my cold, dead hands. Come and take it." Robbie, you were just saying that about your stove before
Yep,
the
I feel
came
the
on the
same way. The same way.
Meanwhile, over
Try and
CNN.
take it.
Let's listen to what CNN's chief climate correspondent had to say on the topic.
This is 100 years of advertising. You know, you're cooking with gas now was a deliberate.
All right, so let's talk about that sentiment. You can pry my stove from my cold dead hands. And to be fair, that's actually a legit argument as far as if you're looking at cooking performance. Now that's if you're comparing gas to electric. Now if it's just an electric, now we're not talking about induction right now. If it's just gas to electric, 15, 20 years ago, I was promoting gas. And the reason is gas did perform better than electric at that time. Now since then, if you look across all the different appliances, if you look at water heaters, we now have heat pump water heaters. If you're looking at cooktops, we now have induction cooktops. And if you're looking at heating and cooling your house, we have geothermal HVAC, and we also have mini split heat pumps. Now, electric, if you're looking at the metrics as far as performance and efficiency, way outperforms gas in all those areas. However, and this is the caveat, and this is probably why most people have this opinion, I'd say less than 20% of the population truly understands those technologies. So what they're doing is that they're taking and comparing gas to what they know. And what they know is I'm comparing this to a heat pump. Now, a heat pump, if you're comparing gas, a standard, say a high efficiency gas, or even like a 80% efficiency gas, performance wise to just a regular heat pump. Well, the thing is, if you don't have good insulation in your house, and if it's not sized properly, well, if you have that heat pump and you're in a cold weather climate, and again, we're not talking about mini splits, we're talking just regular heat pumps, you have to have that backup electric. Because if it gets really cold outside, because when you're designing these systems, you're designing for peak efficiency. So you're looking at the extreme temperature. So you're designing the HVAC side or the cooling side based on the hottest days that are going to be in your climate zone, and you're designing the heating side based on the coldest days. Well, sometimes if you have a long period and you have a heat pump and it's not able to perform during those coldest days, you have that electric backup. And again, it doesn't necessarily feel as good. It's just not as comfortable. However, if you're looking at geothermal, and if you're also looking at some of these mini split systems, those systems do work really well. They're a lot more comfortable. They perform better. And when we've installed these, I've never had complaints from our clients. And the reason I like to promote those over gas is mainly because 80% efficient means you've got this pipe. And here's one that's in my house. You can see you've got the pipe that's going through the roof. But unfortunately, if I have a negative pressure in that area, what's happening, from a safety point of view is you've got something called backdrafting. So if I do run my kitchen exhaust, and again, cooking stoves are the cause of a lot of these problems, but not in the ways that they're trying to legislate right now. And I really wish I can get with some of these politicians to help them with maybe just some education so we can make the right decisions. So what happens is you've got backdrafting. So you turn the exhaust on, you've got a negative pressure. Well, it's going to bring that air in from somewhere. So typically what I do is I crack a window next to our cooktop. Again, we're about to remodel our kitchen, so I'm going to design something that's better than that. But for right now, again, as it's exhausting out, I'm bringing in fresh air, makeup air. That way it's not sucking in from other sources. If I don't do that, what happens is it sucks down the chimney, and I've got a test that I've shown with that. And it can also suck down some of these pipes. It's going to basically, air is going to come in wherever it wants, and usually the path of least resistance. So with that, again, I prefer all electric, mostly from a safety point of view, because I don't want those chemicals. I don't want the carbon monoxide inside my house. Carbon monoxide is not good. I'm sure we all know that it kills, and you can't smell it. And that's the other thing about that. So how does this relate to cooktops? Well, cooktops can have some improper combustion. You also have some leaky valves. And if you're smelling natural gas inside your house, again, natural gas typically doesn't have an odor. What they do is they add some smells to it. That way you can smell it and know that there's a leak inside your house. So any combustion, again, I try to keep it in a closed unit. If you have to install a fireplace, again, a closed fireplace. And that's the way we like to design it. Mostly for safety reasons, but now I can make that argument in 2023 and beyond, and it's been out for several years, that I can find equivalent electric appliances that outperform the gas, and my clients will be happier with those versus the gas. Does that mean that I can still talk my clients out of a gas cooktop? That's one of the things, even with my super green clients, they do not want to let go. And if they're from a cold weather climate, they don't want to let go of their fireplace. So what I have to do as a green builder that's conscientious of all these different things is make sure that I design a balanced system inside their house to allow them to do these things. Now again, and I'm not to the point of making them sign a waiver, but it's like, listen, if you're building a house like this, these things, you know, they look good. We like to see a flame, and our primal instincts, we see fire. We know that we're being protected. And you can also argue, like, if the power goes out, like having that gas backup is a way to cook and whatnot. So there are some downsides of electric that you do have to consider. So let's look at the rest of this interview.
Campaign from the American Gas Association when they were up against wood and coal back in the 30s. Even today, a couple of years ago, it was found that they're sort of paying influencers to cook out their gas stoves because electric, frankly, is so superior just in terms of it's much more efficient, it's safer, the new induction stoves are safer and all of that. The science is showing us.
All right, let me stop him right there. So he said electric is more efficient. He threw in the word induction, so that was kind of, so there is a difference. Even though induction cooktops, the source energy is electric. Electric is not more efficient than gas. And we did this test. We actually boiled water, and you can take a look at that video from the upper right-hand corner. I might even like go through that, like do some clips a little bit later on in this one. But we actually compared electric to gas and also induction. Induction won, gas came in second. Electric, honestly, I was with the group. We just kind of got bored at 12 minutes. We just shut it off. It actually did not perform. So if you're looking at gas to like a flat electric, it's usually like an infrared type cooktop, those flat ones, or even the coiled ones. Electric does not perform as well as gas. So from him saying that, I'm not saying he's gaslighting us, but there's lots of different technologies. And I think the problem is that these technologies are confusing. People don't understand them. So the people that are talking about them really don't understand science. And that's really, some of the problems that we are having in the US is people don't understand science, or they're not trying to understand it in such a way that they can communicate it to others. I really think that if everybody would have looked at the data and they were presented the data in a fair way instead of trying to impose it on them, that they would have come to the right conclusion, which is like, hey, I'm going to go with induction over this gas cooktop. Doesn't mean you aren't going to use gas. Again, gas does have its uses. You can use it outside, but just make sure that you're using it with the proper ventilation.
A gas stove in a small apartment, especially with bad ventilation, it's like having a car idling there. And if you have young kids, it can affect cognitive abilities and as well as asthma.
That's what that shill for big electric stove had to say. Look, people have different preferences about these things. I don't know. You referenced this the other day. You said this is apparently, there has been research on the harms to kids and how it causes asthma. I looked at least one of the studies that was going around yesterday, and that study that was referenced by CNN that concluded that 12.7% of all childhood asthma can be attributed to gas stoves. According to Twitter user PolitiFact, who writes PolitiFact rather, who writes a lot of really good, taking a conservative position on a lot of culture and economic issues that I like. He said that study was funded and run by anti-gas and clean energy advocates. The study's top authors are listed as staff for RMI, which admits to at least partially funding the study as well. It's a nonprofit dedicated to carbon neutrality and the acceleration of the, quote, clean energy transition.
Yeah, RMI, I'm looking at the study. The RMI is the top author. Also, there's a study that comes out of the Faculty of Medicine and Health from Sydney School of Public Health, another Australian School of Public Health, Department of Epidemiology and Population Health at Albert Einstein College of Medicine in the Bronx, and some other groups. So yeah, I don't think you have to rely on this study or any other to know that it's been pretty common knowledge for a long time. This is from the Washington Post, not citing that study, that natural gas stoves emit air pollutants such as nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, and fine particulate matter at levels the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and World Health Organization have said are unsafe and linked to respiratory illnesses, cardiovascular problems, cancer, and other health conditions. But look, science has been wrong on these kinds of things before. Eggs are good for you, then they're bad for you, then they're good for you again. Meat, wine, chocolate, we've all been through the whole rigmarole. All
right, so I want to talk about some of the things that they hit on. Again, yes, the funding may have come from somebody that is like pro one type of fuel source, but I'll let you know right now, the manufacturers don't care. The ones that make gas, they also make electric, they also make induction. So whatever you buy from them, they're going to make money. So there's not this like crazy lobby that's pushing for one type of fuel source over the other. So like when I'm looking at replacing our water heater next month, That company makes this amazing heat pump water heater. They make regular electric water heaters. They also make gas water heaters. They also make electric tankless. They also make gas tankless. They don't care. You're going to buy it. They just want to make sure that you're buying their brand and pushing into it. So as far as like how these studies are funded and whatnot, again, the manufacturers, I mean, they are worried about liability and stuff like that. But as long as you buy an appliance, then they're going to make money off of this. So let's look at who is actually pushing for this. If you look at some green building organizations, again, they understand the science, so obviously they're going to advocate for what is better for indoor air quality. So when she's talking about like the science has changed and can be wrong, one thing that we are learning, and it's not just with regards to indoor air quality, anything in the air that you're breathing is bad. Like your lungs are unexposed. I mean, they're exposed, and unless you're walking around with a mask all the time, you're breathing all those particulates in the air. That does cause problems for your body. There's particulates in the air, which is from cooking. Again, cooking puts out these really fine ones, and if you're not exhausting out, then you need to make sure you've got a good filter on your house. Also, if you're looking at trying to cook in the house and you're using gas, electric, or induction, you make sure you have good ventilation. Because really the best way is getting the ventilation out. I was talking to somebody yesterday and it's like, hey, I want to add all these crazy things to my HVAC system just to like kind of kill everything that's in the air. It's like, regardless of how much you purify the air that's recirculating inside your house, you still need fresh air. So looking at an ERV, you're bringing in some of that fresh air, and it's also exhausting some of that bad air out. Humans are the #1 source of pollutants inside the house. So if you just let a house sit there and we're not doing anything, an idle house, as long as the HVAC is running, it's pretty much going to be fairly clean. It's once the humans come in, we've got dander that comes off of us, we've got pet dander, we cook, we clean, we're adding chemicals, we're adding chemistry to the house. We're the #1 source of pollution. So we need to make sure that we have systems in place that can get rid of some of those pollutants.
Respect if people want to continue to subject themselves to some level of risk. Maybe it's not any risk at all. And the good news is that nobody's actually coming for your stove, so no need to start arming yourself and nailing boards over your front door here.
Well, wait a minute. But you're agreeing that, well, I appreciate what you just said, but you seem to be agreeing that this is a Republicans pounce story, which I saw literally the Republican sees language being used again. Sometimes it's fair to accuse Republicans of getting all worked up about nothing. In fact, it's one of their favorite things to do. It doesn't seem to me that this is a case of that. This was sparked by someone who does have the authority, or whose agency has the authority to make it harder or prevent you from buying gas stoves or from having gas stove, saying that we're looking at doing just that. So then there was a lot of criticism from Republicans, and then there were a lot of Democrats like AOC, like the person talking on CNN saying, well, actually, it might be a good idea. There are all these risks.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Let me try to put like this in perspective. So with the technology that's out there right now, again, 10, 20 years ago, I would say absolutely go with gas. It's the better option out there. Technology and science changes, and we're actually getting better products out there. So if a high-end client came to me right now, or even like a entry-level client, like what is the best way to cook inside the house? I'm going to go with induction. We've done the testing. For many reasons, it's safer, it's more efficient as far as the actual output, the efficiency. Gas and electric are by far, like most of the energy doesn't even make it to the pot in the cooking source itself, where induction is much more efficient that way. But also from a safety point of view, you don't have to worry about all the byproducts of the gas. So from just a performance point of view, induction works much better. It's easier, it's better controlled. We actually spoke to a chef, and he says he prefers induction over gas. And he does work for a company that sells gas appliances, electric and induction. He says the control is so much better, and that's why he wants to go with it. So just from a performance point of view, forget the environment, just be selfish, think about yourself. Induction is the way to go. They're not making the argument for induction here, though. If you heard that guy that was talking earlier, he was making the case for electric. Now, I'm going to argue against electric. I'm going to argue for induction. Now, is electric bad? No, it's not bad. It just doesn't perform as well, and it's not as efficient as induction is. So does it mean everyone needs to go induction? No, I just want people to understand that you have options out there. And if you look at the different technologies, understand the pros and cons of each, and make that proper decision. Does that mean we should ban gas inside the houses? It's kind of like if you have, like when you drink a soft drink, and again, no offense to, I mean, I'm in Atlanta, Coca-Cola's here, but we also know the risk of drinking soft drinks, especially you've got the acids in there, it can affect your teeth, it can affect your health. The sugars and also some of the sweeteners are not necessarily good for our health. That's kind of the way I look at gas. I mean, gas, cooktops, they do work. They're not horrible. Like Coca-Cola isn't necessarily going to kill you. You may not live as long. Or soft drinks in general. However, there are better options out there. For instance, water. I mean, water is good for you. And there are some other things. But when you drink a soft drink, you know that there's inherent risk with that. I think the same thing should be put on cooktops. It's like, listen, you can go with the cooktop. It's just not the best option out there. And if you go with the cooktop because you want that flame and say you don't necessarily have enough power inside your house for that electric to be installed, then you need to understand that there's certain things you need to do to your house to make sure you and your family are safe. That's across the board. It doesn't matter what size your house is. I've been inside multi-million-dollar houses. I've been inside houses that are just starter houses for a new family. The technology and physics is the same. If you don't have balanced ventilation and you're sucking too much air out, and then you have issues with ventilation there, that's going to be causing potential combustion air coming from other appliances. So really, I think where the argument falls flat on all different sides here is I don't believe everyone's been presenting with the correct information. They've not been able to do a side-by-side comparison. They just know that there's something that they fall in love with that's been promoted forever, something that's part of the building code and something that's been allowed forever is now being taken away from them. And they don't like that, and rightly so. Do I blame them for that? Would I come to the same conclusion with those facts? I might. I happen to have different facts, and that's why I'm trying to present. I wouldn't say my opinion. I would say I'm presenting my conclusion based on the analysis that I've done. Now, whenever I have a strong opinion on something like this, you see me present products. It's mostly because, if I don't understand something, I'm going to go out there and maybe, sometimes spend years doing research. Like right now, we're working on filtration. I was trying to figure out, the best way to insulate a house, bang for the buck. We've kind of come up with some good, better, best solutions based on that. But I'm not going to take what an entity, a manufacturer, or the government is telling me at its face, because again, I'm not going to say that I don't trust them, but it's trust but verify. I need to understand how they came to that conclusion, because I in fact am armed with facts, and I do have access to a lot of these manufacturers, so I can ask them questions and then kind of present something in a certain way where it makes more sense. Now, a lot of times they'll say, hey, this is the way I want you to install it, Matt. And it's like, well, I've done the research, and actually that's going to cause these other problems. So even if a manufacturer is telling you something, or the government's telling you something, like the fact that this stove is taken completely out of context, because banning the actual technology is not the issue. Now, is banning cooking the issue? No. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, cooking does cause a lot of pollutants inside the house. Does that mean I'm going to ban electric? Because electric does have some bad byproducts as well. And what about electric if it's coming from a plant that is burning coal? Does that mean that's bad? Because we know that gas actually burning is cleaner than coal. It's very confusing, but if you just look at it like what is best for you, your lifestyle, your family, I do believe if you're looking at it from that particular filter and that perspective, then you will choose induction because it is the superior technology. Electric is not.
Accusing anybody of anything. I'm simply stating the fact that Joe Biden has no interest in pursuing this, and even the plan that was being advanced by folks who were thinking of banning stoves wouldn't be coming for anybody's stove. That language is...
They would stop you from buying new stoves.
Hyperbolic, exactly. Well, it would simply say that you can't buy new stoves, and moreover, if you did want to replace your old stove, there's some pretty significant subsidies that you can take advantage of about $800 that can help you do that. Now, I just want to say for the record, I prefer cooking on gas stoves. I find it easier to adjust the heat quicker without having to wait for it to like modulate.
So much better.
I think the pans that I have seem to work better on the gas stove that I had before I moved to a new apartment last February. Like that's no question for me. However, I don't think I'll ever go back to a gas stove, not necessarily because of the health implications, but because electric stoves rather, induction tops are so much easier to clean. You just wipe it down, and plus it gives you all this extra surface area and what is a small living space already. Like, I'll never go back. I love them. So I'm more than happy to have some health hook that makes it easier for people to convert their gas stoves into electric stoves. I think a lot of people want to take advantage of that, and I think that's ultimately a good thing. It's more choice for people, and if people have kids in the house, especially in small environments, and are concerned about what some of these studies suggest, power to them if they want to make the transition.
People should read the research and decide for themselves what kind of cooking environment they want in their own house or apartment or whatever it is. I've had both. I vastly prefer cooking with gas.
What about cleaning? Do you clean the stove?
All right. So, man, so many things to unpack there. So she makes a really, really good argument for induction. So she's arguing for induction. She says it's easier to clean. The ability to clean induction versus also cleaning electric is pretty much the same. Actually, induction might be a little bit easier because the actual top of the cooktop does not heat up, so you don't have to worry about things that spill actually baking into the surface, and it's much easier to clean that way. Now, Robbie, when he's talking about, it's like, hey, I've used both, and I just prefer gas. He's right and wrong. So first of all, he says he used both. He's referring to gas and electric, and again, we're talking about 3 different technologies, not 2 different technologies. And I think that's a big part of the confusion here is in the messaging. So if he would have compared gas to electric, of course he came to that conclusion because gas is superior to just electric infrared cooking. There's also induction. So she's talking about induction. It's really apples and oranges here. She's talking about like her experience with induction, which I kind of question that she actually used induction. And again, I'm not because some of the things that she was talking about seem to benefit electric versus induction. Now with induction, you can actually control it much better than you can with gas and electric. So that's also like a check mark in favor of induction. So really kind of surprised that she pointed that out. She mentioned she's got children as well. So with induction, you can actually say if you take the pot off of the actual cooking surface, a child can put their hand on it. They won't burn their hand. I'm not recommending you try this, but I've done it. And because the surface actually doesn't heat up, like electric, the surface heats up. It transfers that energy to the pot. And also with gas, you've got a flame directly on the pot. With induction, again, it's a little bit different. It's magnetism, and the pot itself is the heating source. So when you take it off, the actual cooktop itself is not necessarily warm, and you're not going to burn yourself. So many safety things from right there. But I think this is the confusion. I'm not mad at these guys. I mean, I actually chose. There's lots of different news clips that I was looking at. I wanted to react to, and I chose this one mainly because I thought they're going to try to present both sides of the story. That's kind of how they're balanced out. You've got the left and the right. And what I'm trying to do is like kind of fill in the gaps of the things that people aren't talking about. And I think there's lots of gaps in this. And I truly believe as more people learn about the different technologies, the pros and cons of each, they will make the right decision based on what works best for them and their family. And honestly, I truly think most people would choose induction if they actually had all the facts.
Stove?
Yeah.
And you take all of the eyes off.
It takes 5 seconds. You take the 2
It
things
does
off.
not take 5 seconds. You got to take all the things off. You got to clean the burner.
The grates. So you take the grates off.
You got to wipe down in there. There's cracks and crevices. Things can fall down in there. There's food down there from 1953.
So we have like 2 grates. That's not like individual
you don't
to
have
each
the 4 separate.
burner. I don't have the 4
separate
it's the 2.
in my last apartment.
That is a pain. I would prefer. So what we have is these 2 grates. You lift them off. You scrub under there. It's not that hard.
No,
it's not that hard.
You've had an induction stovetop?
I've had.
I don't believe that. So he is right. The gas is much more difficult to clean. It's kind of a pain in the butt. Where you've got a flat surface for electric and induction, so those are easier to clean. The other thing that he doesn't really talk about. Like, so in our case, again, I'm not anti-gas. I'm just looking at the facts here. So we've got gas, and our son was cooking. Again, he's got his cooking merit badge. He's a Boy Scout. So he was cooking, and it kind of like overflowed onto the actual burner itself. Well, there's a safety mechanism in there that if it does that, it actually won't click back on. So it kept on trying to auto fire over and over and over. And I had to look at a YouTube video, finally just took the whole thing apart, cleaned it out, unplugged it, shut the gas off, let it dry out, put it all back together. Took several hours, and then it worked, but I had to let it dry out. So basically, if water gets on it, some of them will keep on doing that spark over and over and over, even if you're not trying to use that burner, because they're just trying to make sure that you're burning any gas and that gas is not leaking into your house. So there are some of the downsides of that. Again, cleaning and also maintenance. The maintenance on the electric and the induction are much less than gas.
Both. I've had both.
And you didn't like the shoop and the glossy, flat ease of cleaning? There's no digging under, there's no crevices, there's no grates?
I honestly, I find that it's just as hard to clean. I find sometimes it's not. If there's not that much dirt,
How
it's
is it
easier
just
to clean.
as hard to clean? Are you boiling over and cooking things on the induction?
If things,
okay.
if things
All
boil
right.
over, it's really hard to. You got to really scrub that stuff up. It's hard to get off.
Just a vinegar water solution should have you spick and span, sir. Just FYI. Look, let us know in the comments. Are you someone who was a gas person who's a convert for convenience reasons like myself? Are you someone who's still sticking with gas, cooking with gas because you're a chef and you need...
All right, so I'm actually going to create a video. I'm going to add a couple more videos to it and put this in the reaction section of their video, just to kind of like, I do want to share this information. Hopefully they don't copyright strike me for this. I'll demonetize it if that's what they're looking for. But I do want to offer that alternative perspective. Now, what she was talking about, like with induction, I just want to point something else out. I'm not really sure either of them have truly tried out induction, because she mentioned that stuff was boiling over. With induction, if you turn it off, it immediately the boil stops. And you can see, like in this video over here, we turned it off, the water stops. We turn it back on, the water, since it's already like at 211 degrees, immediately just got to that 212 and started boiling again, or that's Fahrenheit for my European friends, 100 Celsius. So with gas and or with electric, if you turn it off, it's still going to be boiling, so it will boil over. The reason is the cooktop in the pan is still hot. So with induction, you turn the heat source off, immediately the heat source goes away. The cooktop is not warm. You can actually move it off, put your hand on it. It's slightly warm, but it's not 200 degrees, it's not 300 degrees, it's not 400 degrees. So you don't have to worry about burning yourself on that. It also means that you can control the temperature of the food much better than you can with some of these other ones, because it is modulating up and down. Electric modulates, and also gas modulates quite a bit. Induction, depending on the brand, for the most part does not. You can control it, turn it on and off pretty quickly. So again, that's that. I want to show you quickly. We've got this video that we created about a year ago. We had some real estate agents and some green builders come out, and what we showed is I just wanted facts. I looked at Sub-Zero Wolf, and Wolf is their cooking line. We went to the showroom and they did a little cooking demonstration for us. And at the end, it's like, hey, I just kind of want to time each of them. Let's put a pot. Let's do a little experiment. Let's put some water in it. Same water, same type of pot for each of them, and we timed it. And I want you guys to take a look at this real quick. I'll cut out most of the reactions, and you can see that just from a performance point of view, induction won. So the people that are still holding onto their gas are like, hey, it takes forever for water to boil on my electric cooktop. You are correct. However, if you go with induction, it boils in half the time. So induction is a superior technology if you're trying to compare all three of those. All right, well, here's a video I created about a year ago just to show my clients, because again, most of them were not convinced without seeing evidence that induction was safer and it was better. So what we did is just to set this up here, we had some agents here. We did a comparison between the three different types of sources. Again, we're not comparing electric to gas, because that's really not a fair comparison. We're looking at induction, gas, and electric. So take a look at this, and I'd love to hear what your conclusion is in the comments after this section.
We're going to see which technology is going to cook water the fastest. We've got infrared electric, we also have induction cooktop, and we also have gas. On your mark, get set, go. All right, so we have 3 pots here. They are all same material, same amount of water. The first one here is gas, the next one is induction, and the last one is electric cooktop, infrared technology.
All right, so obviously this one is the gas right here, and the 2 other ones. So this one right here is the infrared electric, and this one right here is the induction. So when they're talking about cleaning, you can see these 2 surfaces do look the same. They are pretty easy to wipe down, but obviously that these are different technologies because you can kind of see the glow of the red over there, and there's no glow right here. So this surface is cool, this surface is hot. That's the main difference.
Technology.
On induction too?
Nothing in the gas so far.
The way that handle's designed, it doesn't transfer heat from the pan.
Seeing a little bit of progress in the induction, so you see some bubbles in the ground. And looking at the electric, nothing so far.
What's this on?
Yeah, so Robbie's right. I mean,
So whenever you do gas, you always want to size your flame to the pan. So I actually have it between low and medium, because if I go any higher, the flame's going to lip around the pan, and you're not going to get good heat conduction.
Minute and a half, nothing
That's a good point.
with the gas. So for all you
more
gas
flame doesn't mean it
heads,
heats
nothing's
faster.
going on there. Oh, look at that. Induction has some bubbles.
It sure is.
Physics, science, we love it.
Steam.
And looking at electric. Yeah, we're seeing some bubbles at the bottom, but definitely not as much as the induction. So
And just to note, Matt, our water came out of a refrigerator because we made sure that we used the exact same size of water, bottled water. So our water was actually about 34 degrees instead of out of your tap, it's probably around 65. So it is boiling. That is
all right. You see that
So
steam?
that is now a full boil, 3 minutes and 5 seconds, and that was again.
So that's pretty
water was
fast. The
34
induction
degrees.
was 3 minutes and 5
Control,
seconds.
Again, the vessel is the source of energy, so that's the reason you can control the heat and have such immediate response.
All right, let's push the button
And-
again. So we got your
And what she means by that is like, so the source of energy is actually the electromagnetic waves coming out of the cooktop, and the actual vessel itself is what heats up. So that's the, I guess I would say, the heat source, but the power source is actually the cooktop, but the cooktop is not heating up, and that's what she meant. And she's really talking about the difference between induction and electric, because you can see kind of this glow back there. The heat source, or what's actually heating it up, is the cooktop, where the heat source here is the pan, but the energy source again is the cooktop in both of these. I know it's kind of confusing, but just the main difference is you're not going to burn your hand on induction, and you can see that, you know, at 3 minutes this actually worked much better than it did with the electric.
hand in it.
Simmer.
You push the button, simmer, instant simmer. Push the button again. Instant boil.
Being a working mom, I learned today that induction could give me time back, and saving on speed to cooking and on the cleanup. The fact that things don't stick on there and I can clean up super quick after the kids get done and I'm done with the meal would give me back hours of time. So I am sold.
So we got a good bit of steam with the gas. We're pretty close to boiling.
Gas is almost
It's
there.
right there, sort of on the cusp.
So far it looks like it's almost at a boil, and this is twice as long as it took the induction to boil. Same amount of water, same pot.
Same pot, same temperature, same content.
Looks like the electric is trying. I don't know. What's
Basically,
the overall on
gas
this one? 10
boils
minutes?
twice. It takes twice as long as induction.
It's coming.
And at 10, 11 minutes,
I mean, you can see.
electric is
You can see the glow at
still
the
so
bottom.
far behind.
So the reason this is taking longer, you have this infrared technology, basically little heat lamps underneath that's heating up the glass. The energy has to transfer from the glass to the pot to the water. Where the reason the induction works so much faster, you've got magnets, induction, or you can just call it magic if you want. And the pot itself is heating the water. All right, so another 15 seconds. We're gonna call it.
Let's call it 12 minutes.
Yeah, let's just call it 12 minutes. And you know what? You didn't.
Yeah.
You didn't cross the finish line. Sorry.
Definitely difficult.
But unlike the induction, I just turned that burner off and it is still bubbling just as much. So again, to the point that you're not going to get the control of temperature. Once this gets hot, that glass underneath has retained so much heat that this is going to stay at that temperature for a while. If this were a delicate sauce, a chocolate, I would physically need to pick this up, move it to another burner, and set it on low, because this burner will retain heat for several minutes.
So Chef George, one of the reasons that we are here today is to...
And that was the point they made in the first clip that we discussed, was talking about the difference between gas and electric. They're saying that they can't necessarily control their cooktop as much with electric. And they're right. I think they were talking about electric, not induction, because with induction you can turn it off, immediately comes, the boil comes directly off. And we did some experiments, some clips with that in a different video. But with electric, you can't really necessarily control it. If you're just like, hey, if you're done cooking, you've got to physically take it off the heat source, because there's some retained heat. Even though the infrared heat lamps have cut off, that infrared is hitting the glass, and the glass is hitting the pot. So you need to make sure that, when I say glass, is like the cooktop, that is still retaining heat. So you've got to take it off away from that heat source.
To show builders, architects, real estate agents, and consumers that cooking with electric is not the same as it was with cooking with electric in the past. You know, coils are out. Obviously, we're using infrared technology or induction cooktop. So tell us a little about your experience in cooking with electric and some of the pros and cons of cooking with electric versus cooking with gas.
Okay, so we can break electric down into two categories. We can either do induction or electric cooktops. So the heat transfer is different for each one of those. Induction is probably more of the way that people are going nowadays, because it's a much more efficient energy transfer, because the energy is transferred directly to a pan that, you know, basically it becomes the big receiver, it becomes the burner itself. So with an electric cooktop or an electric burner, we have coils that heat the glass that heat the pan. So it's similar to using a gas burner. So it's not as efficient as induction by any means. It has fast heat up, but it's got some lag time on cooling down, where if we use induction, then we have a quick cool down, just like we would with gas. We have all the control with induction that we do with gas. So drawback on gas is we have about 60% energy transfer roughly, and whereas with the induction we've got about 98% efficiency, because most of the energy makes it into the pan. So those are really your big pluses.
All right, let's talk about that real quick, just as far as the energy efficiency, and also what this means for indoor air quality. So he's saying that 60% of this flame, the heat from this, is making it into the pot. That means the rest of it, you know, if we had an infrared camera, you can see that it's actually going around and up. And that's why you need the ventilation, because the heat, but also like when this burns, you do have the different chemicals that are coming out. And again, I'm not going to do a chemistry class right now. Mainly just talking physics. So, you know, the efficiency, that's where the, you know, 40% of the energy is not actually going into the pan, it's going around it. So fairly inefficient, where you're looking at 90 plus for induction. And the reason that's so important is because when you're ventilating and you've got that exhaust hood, you're not only picking up the heat and also some of the steam coming off the pot. You need to take the excess, that 40% that's not making it to the pot. You've got to ventilate that out, because otherwise, if you're cooking in the summer, all that heat's coming back into your house, and your AC is having to fight against that. So you want to make sure that all that heat is going out, the heat that you're not using, of course.
Whereas with the induction, we've got about 98% efficiency, because most of the energy makes it into the pan. So those are really your big
98,
pluses.
that's pretty good.
So you are a chef, and a lot of picky cookers out there say, I only want to cook with gas. So what do you have to say to those people that only like to cook with gas, and you know, with regards to at least considering induction?
You know, well, a little caveat to that is if you want to have the griddle or the char broiler with our equipment, you'd have to go with gas. But with induction, though, you've got ease of cleanup. You don't have the residual radiant heat that you have. If you make if you have a boil over or a spill on an induction cooktop, you can just simply pick up your pan, wipe it up, and put your pan back down. That's definitely not the case using gas.
All right, so first of all, this is, he's representing Wolf Sub-Zero Cove, and again, a high-end manufacturer for this, for cooktops. They sell gas, they sell electric, and they sell induction. They don't care which one you buy. They just want to make sure that whatever solution that you're purchasing works for your scenario. Now, but still, given that you can choose between the different ones, he's still saying induction is the better one. They sell all three. He's not biased. He cooks on all different ones. Now, do they make more money on one than the other? I don't know what their margins are. I'm assuming that all of them are high end. They perform really well, and the clients are happy with them because everyone. That's one of the things when you sell a house is like, hey, I've got this type of cooktop in here. Now you can still say you have a Wolf cooktop, a Wolf range with induction. It still has that high end brand recognition. But also, if you arm them, say, hey, by the way, induction's better, and maybe as a housewarming gift, you get them some pots that work with induction, they'll be very happy. And it's like, hey, you know what? Instead of putting in what I thought was going to sell in the house, they put into the house what they thought was best. Now we're building two spec houses right now, and one of them is a showcase house, and you can see it, the link down in the descriptions, the 1920s makeover. Now with this, it's a passive house, so we cannot use anything that's we can't actually use a gas cooktop in there because they're worried about indoor air quality. The house is so tight, and if we don't have good ventilation, or if they don't use the ventilation, we can actually be causing harm to the occupants. Now this is with gas. It's not that way with induction, and it's not that way with an electric cooktop. So we're actually using it because we can't use it, but I would still put induction in there regardless of what their rules were, because I do believe in a high-end house, this is gonna be like a $3 million house, I do believe it's the better technology for those occupants. And especially if somebody is buying this house and they're concerned about their health and whatnot, then this is the right technology. Do you have another example? We just built a rental house for a client of mine, showed him this video, and after he watched the video, I was like, hey, I'm going with induction. He did spend a little bit more on that than he would have with the electric. However, he was actually able to rent the house out for more because he had some tenants in there that were worried about indoor air quality, and one of the tenants had asthma. So we saw the study earlier, and the one that AOC was quoting, saying, hey, you've got all these pollutants in the air because of gas. It affects people with asthma. Well, people with asthma do recognize this, and they do want to live in an environment where the air is better for them. So they actually chose to rent from this particular landlord that we were working for. And because we put the heat pumps, we put the mini splits in there. We also put the electric cooktop. We made sure that other things were balanced inside the house. Good air filtration. We put a MERV 13 with April air into the house. Now, all these different technologies ensure that the occupants had a better living condition, say, than if they lived next door, because we're actually taking into account indoor air quality. So all these decisions that we're asking people to make, yes, I want you to make good decisions for the environment. However, if you are completely selfish and you're making decisions only for you, it'll still be good for the environment. So we've seen right here that that induction is superior to the other two forms of cooking, because we have three forms of cooking. Well, there's also brisket. There's other ways. You've got charcoal and whatnot. There's other ways of cooking, but saying like the common, say the 98% of the way people cook inside their house in the United States, that induction is the better option. I truly believe that if we give people, arm them with the right information, they'll make the right decision, and we don't have politicians dictating certain ways of living. I think that Republicans, I think Democrats, all of our clients, independents, if you show them like a video like this, like, hey, here's a comparison between the three videos, here's the pros and cons of each, and they're going to look, it's like, oh, there's a lot more pros over here than there are cons. I'm going to go with that technology, especially if it performs much better, because we're not a very patient species, and in the United States, like, where everything, we want it right now. Well, if you want water boiled in 3 minutes, induction's the way to go. If you want to wait for 12 minutes and you're trying to save a few $100s and buying just an electric infrared, well, that's the way to go. But just understand by saving a little bit there, you're going to have to pay for performance and also efficiency. So, with time and money, you are going to eventually be losing money by using that inferior technology. And with gas, you do have to worry about all of the off-gassing, all the chemicals that are being released into the air, all the particulates that are coming off of the cook pots. So I do want to look at another video real quick. It's from my friend Corbett Lunsford. He did a good reaction to kind of like what's in the news, and he brought up some good points. Again, his is mostly on indoor air quality, ventilation, and some efficiency. Wasn't necessarily talking about how actually each cooktop works, because again, my clients are mostly worried about performance. Health is important to them, of course, but they just want like what cooks the best and what's going to give them the meal in the best manner. So that's why we created this one video. So let's take a look at Corbett's video real quick. All right, so Corbett Lunsford made this video. It's on his channel, and you can see a link in the description below.
Cooktops, because right now the Consumer Product Safety Commission in the United States is talking about, down the road, a ban on gas cooktops. They are not coming for your gas stove. That's not a thing. They're talking about making manufacturers not sell them anymore.
This is actually a very good video, and I'm going to make some points on this. He may say this again later on. I think he kind of does. But let's look at all the different types of pollution coming off of this. You have, again, we just talked to the representatives of Wolf. They said like 40% of the energy from this is actually making it around the pot. So you've got heat as a pollutant because it does cause other chemistry in the air. But also an egg. It's like cooking an egg, ironically, is if you don't have proper ventilation, there's a lot of micro particulates coming off of this egg going into the air. So if you actually had a sensor inside your kitchen when you're cooking an egg or cooking anything on your cooktop that is basically changing shape and changing from a liquid to a solid, and you've got the oils and stuff in your pan, you're probably going to have particulates in the air. And the VOC meter is going to say, hey, there's a lot of stuff going on here. You need to ventilate quickly. Most people don't have a sensor in their kitchen. So what we recommend is like, if you're cooking at any time, and I've tried to, educate my family, educate other people that I know. I've got, other, family members with respiratory issues. Is like when you're cooking, use ventilation, but also make sure you've got makeup air coming into the area because there's a lot going on here. You've got the fuel source. If you're using gas, that's causing pollutants. Any of the residue that's on here, and it looks like there's some old oil that's burning off. That's not really good to breathe. And also the egg itself. You're not supposed to be breathing in the particulates. Now it sounds silly because we've done this our whole life. We smell food. When you go to grandma's house, it smells great, but unfortunately, with some of that, even though it smells good, doesn't necessarily mean it is good for you.
Is a thing. They can do that. And the gas cooktop is not the whole problem. So this video is going to be exploring why, again, systems thinking is the whole thing. We're talking about the system of physics, chemistry, and microbiology inside of our homes, which is a very interesting, intricate, dynamic system that's changing all the time, minute to minute. A product is not a silver bullet. Getting rid of a product that is not good for us is also not a silver bullet. So here are the things that the Consumer Product Safety Commission and legislators are worried about from gas cooktops. Number one is chemistry.
So what he's saying is like getting rid of gas cooktops is not going to necessarily decrease asthma inside the house. So yes, gas cooktops are bad. If you got rid of gas cooktops, asthma may go down a little bit, but getting rid of, say, gas cooktops, going with induction, having good ventilation, and having a balanced house where you have good indoor air quality all together is really what the solution is here.
They're worried about nitrogen oxides. We call them NOx for short. That's NO, NO2, NO3. NO3 is an interesting one that is created by gas combustion because on the outdoor environment side, it only hangs out at night. It's a pollution that's only there, that's toxic for humans at night when the sun is down. When the sun comes back up, it rips that molecule apart. The sun never shines inside of our homes, and so this thing can hang out all the time until it gets breathed in by us. And remember that your lungs are babies. They have no defense mechanisms at all. So that's the first thing. The second thing that they're worried about is particles. And particles are always bad to breathe in any concentration. If you look at the known carcinogens of particles in air, you'll find sawdust on the list. That's perfectly natural. You might think, oh, well, it's not a synthetic chemical at all. How can sawdust be bad? Anything that is in the air, because our lungs are babies, is going to hurt our lungs. That is the message here. So anytime you're heating up a surface and cooking.
I do want to make a good point there, because we are a contractor, and sometimes people will be in the house. They see like large particles of sawdust, say laying around, and they're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to die because that's listed. What they're talking about are the microparticles that are in the air. So there's really two different, like if you see dust on the surface, typically that's the dust that's not going to affect you. It's the particles that are buoyant for like hours, days, months, that stay in the air for a long time. Those are the things that you breathe, because you're not sucking air off the ground. You're not sucking those large particles. So if you see like a wood chip that's that big, yeah, that is sawdust. But we're talking about the small, fine things that are going to be in the air. Now, when I'm personally cutting, I am a carpenter as well. I wear a mask that can filter out a lot of these particles, because I actually had a friend that did develop asthma from sawdust because he's a woodworker, didn't necessarily wear the proper ventilation, and he's working with some exotic woods, and those particles got in his lungs, and now he's got asthma. So these are things you do have to look out for. But when we're talking about sawdust, it's the particles in the air, it's not the particles on the ground, and it's definitely not scrap wood, even though that technically is sawdust.
All cooking does that, and that's why gas stoves alone are not the problem. You're going to be sending particles up into the air. Every surface in life is coated with a thin layer of oil. Don't feel bad about it. It's not unsanitary. But when you heat it up, those eject into the air, and now they're floating around, and where they can be bad for us. The third thing that they're worried about is off-gassing, because the valves in these stoves are not airtight. They're not like scientific grade, because you're buying it for an affordable price. So the valves in them are going to leak a little bit. So when your true solution is not working, which is your kitchen exhaust hood that goes outside, when that is turned off because you're not cooking anymore, these things are still leaking that methane or propane into your home. And it's got all kinds of other chemicals in it, like toluene and xylene and things like that. You don't have to know what those are, just know they're bad for you. So those are the three things that we're worried about from gas stoves. But we have a propane stove in our tiny house. We have an induction cooktop here in the big house. Both of them are fine for your indoor environment as long as you're exhausting all the pollution to outside. If you were to replace your gas stove by taking advantage of the new governmental rebate on this with an induction cooktop, then that's very nice. Good job. That's not going to solve the indoor pollution issue, because know what you're cooking with. Induction, electric, gas, microwave, air fryer, that's all going to create these particles. And it's also going to create the chemical reactions, which are what chemistry is all about. Chemistry is the creation of new chemicals that were not there to begin with.
He made a good point earlier, because he's talking about the different types of chemicals like xylene, toluene, and whatnot. You don't have to understand chemistry. Don't really even have to understand physics. I'm sorry. You don't have to understand chemistry. You don't have to understand physics to have a healthy house. If you have reactive ventilation, basically sensors inside your house, and the sensors say, hey, there's too much PM 2.5 inside the house, there's too many particulates, or I've got some VOCs that we're detecting, and you have ventilation in that area, suck the bad out and bring good air in, that's all you need. So basically you need a smart house that can know what's best for you through these different sensors, and get the bad air out, bring good air in, and you're good to go. So I think a lot of people are trying to overcomplicate this. I'm not saying Corbett is, because Corbett definitely tries to come up with holistic solutions that make sense, but I think everyone tries to boil it down to a product or a device, where if you are looking at a device, well, for the kitchen, it needs to be that exhaust hood, and you have the makeup air coming in for that. Or if you're looking at a whole house solution, because humans, and say you're painting inside the house and whatnot, is an ERV or something like that. An ERV is basically going to exhaust out the bad air, bring fresh air in, and it's got this enthalpic core that allows you to not have to waste energy by bringing all that cold or hot air in. It kind of exchanges some of that temperature and the humidity as it's going through that core. So if you want to learn more about that, there's a video in the upper right hand corner. But I think a lot of people are worried about, like, hey, what exactly is happening in the air? It doesn't really matter. Humans inside the house, you're going to cause air pollution, and just through activity. And there's lots of different sources. You don't have to. I mean, it's good to know what the source is so you can get rid of it. So you want to make sure that you're not bringing a lot of these toxins into the house. So you're looking at the source contamination so you can get that out. But also just understand that it is going to happen. Just like water is going to get into the house somehow, you just need to have a way for it to get out. The same thing with pollution. You are going to have pollution, and even if you have the best designed house, like, hey, this is the greenest house, and all the materials that we used are perfectly safe, well, that's great. As soon as you move into it, you're bringing in toxic furniture. You're starting to do things. You're using hairspray. You're cooking. As you can see, cooking does have a lot of pollution here. But you need to know, okay, we're bringing the pollution in. What's a good way to put it in a well-ventilated area? If not, how do we look at whole house ventilation to make sure that the air that your family is breathing is clean?
And so we all live in chemical reactors when you look at it this way. And we've got this closed-in beaker, and they're getting more and more airtight as we go down the line because of energy codes. So you're living in a more airtight home today than they did 100 years ago. The chemical reactions that are happening in your home are more long-lasting. The products are going to hang out longer, and so on and so forth. Now, the solution here, as far as the vent to outside goes, number one, it should cover the entire surface. It should be quiet so that people will use it. And by the way, I'm linking a video on screen now to select your kitchen exhaust hood, which I hope that you will do. Make sure that it goes outside. But once it's installed, guess what needs to happen now? You need to use it. And everyone needs to use it. And that is just probably not going to happen. So let's be realistic about that. That's why they have now a kitchen exhaust hood that will automatically activate based on heat. It has basically an infrared camera pointing down at the cooktop, and it can see how high it turned on so that it can dial up its speed. That is going to solve the problem for good as far as the use of these. And it does need to be quiet, otherwise people are going to find out which breaker that's on and turn it off altogether because it's annoying.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing on the 1920s makeover house. So we are partnering with Roan. They do have the sensors in there, so they're looking at heat, and it triggers via heat. There's also something that you can put in the ductwork, and I believe Corbett will talk about that because I know he talks about it in some of his others, where it can detect a pressure difference and automatically brings fresh air in for that to kind of have the makeup air. But you also have sensors that you can plug in and you can tie to the circuit for this, where if it detects VOCs in that particular area, in that particular zone, then the actual cooktop will come on, just because it's like, hey, there's something going on in the kitchen. I've got a VOC plume or whatever's happening in there. Or you've got too much moisture. I mean, a lot of times it'll detect, it's like, hey, the humidity is really high in here because of cooking, and then it can exhaust. And again, you can do this with sensors, and that way you don't have to think about it. You don't have to like worry about training your spouse or your partner on how to properly use an exhaust hood. It just works for itself. Same thing with bath fans. I mean, I'm a huge fan of I'm a fan of fans. I'm a huge fan of reactive ventilation, where I've got a bath fan that we're putting in our kid space, so I don't have to worry about mold and things in there. What it does is, like, if they walk into the bathroom, there's a moisture sensor. It automatically kicks on for that. And also there's an exhaust sensor. There's a moisture sensor in addition to the motion sensor. And what the moisture sensor does is it detects the humidity in that space and basically runs for a certain period of time until the actual place is dried out. Then it shuts off. Because most people, when they leave a shower, they shut off the switch for the light and also for the fan, and you still have all the moisture in there. It condenses on the surface. It reaches dew point. Then you've got mold and you have other issues.
Doesn't have to be loud. But at that point, once you have the exhaust hood installed, solution A, and you are using it, solution B, remember that it's still a system. Homes today are more airtight, as I just mentioned, and if size exhaust hood and the right air tightness of home and the right size of home, this might create major problems for you. Now we've done something good and created problems as a side effect, which is the basis of all of home performance. Everything we do in homes has byproducts and side effects. So what you might need at that point is pressure relief. And this is a pressure relief tool. This is a monitor that you would put into the exhaust vent of your exhaust hood. And this would then activate this pressure switch, and you can dial in what pressure specifically you want to be listening for. When it senses that, oh, there's airflow going on, that must mean that the fan is on, then it opens up a damper, which is just a flap that's around a hole to the outside, opens that up, lets air into your house. So now it's not coming in through unwanted places like down your fireplace chimney. That's a major problem that we see in $1 million houses. Through a flap that's around a hole to the outside, opens that up, lets air into your house. So now it's not.
Now, I believe this is in this tiny house, and he kind of like leaves this open, just kind of like make it the point that you want the fresh air automatically coming in. Now, I believe his other house that he's built for himself does have it coming through the HVAC system, or at least it's preconditioned as it's coming in. Some people will have this come through a filter into their HVAC system, and then because again, if you live in a polluted area, then you're just bringing pollution in with that. So you make sure it's filtered, but also conditioned, because this is raw air from the outside. So if it's cold outside, you're bringing in the cold air, and if it's super humid outside, you're bringing in the humid air. I actually recommend that this is near the cooking source. So basically, you're bringing in that raw unconditioned air, if you decide to do it that way, next to the outlet itself, and then it's exhausting right out. So you basically have a short path. You don't have to worry about conditioning that air. It's coming in, it's the makeup air, but it's also getting exhausted out. So you'll be able to pull out the contaminants, but also at the same time, you don't have an energy penalty for bringing in that raw air.
It's not coming in through unwanted places like down your fireplace chimney. That's a major problem that we see in $1 million houses.
It's a problem I have in my house. It's not a $1 million house, but I don't know. According to Zillow, it might be, because everyone's house is $1 million house right now because of investors. So if I don't crack the window next to the exhaust head, because we don't have the makeup air designed for that yet, I can actually smell the chimney. So a lot of times people are like, hey, well, it's in the middle of the summer, why do I smell my fireplace? It's like, well, because you've got a negative pressure inside your house. You're cooking, you've got some sort of exhaust, you've got imbalance of duct work, or the wind could just be your house creating a negative pressure, and then basically it's backdrafting to the house, although that's not probably likely. It's usually mechanical systems causing that pressure difference inside your house. So what we have to do, just so we don't smell the chimney, is, and again, we've never used this chimney. We're in Georgia. We don't recommend people put chimneys in unless they're putting them outside. You don't need a chimney in Georgia, especially if you insulate well, have good windows. So it's one of those things that we have in our house. It's basically contributing to bad air quality. I left it in just in case we lose the power and it's in the middle of the winter and we have to burn wood or something like that to keep the house, the family warm. The reality is we have pretty good insulation. We have other systems in place, looking at potentially putting some solar in to kind of help with some of the heating systems. So once we have all those in place, I'm probably going to get rid of the chimney because we've never used it. It's just, it looks great, not something that's super functional.
Through your water heater flue, backdrafting all that carbon monoxide and NOx and all the things that we were worried about with this gas combustion thing. And by the way, probably someday all of gas combustion inside homes will not be allowed by code. So let's just plan for that, because yeah, it's not good. It's dangerous. We see low-level poisonings all the time. And I'm linking a video on screen now about carbon monoxide detectors and why they don't do what you think they do. So these kinds of solutions, just having this in your home doesn't mean it's going to work right either. So the government is not going to have a checkbox.
I'm going to have to watch that video and react to it so my audience can see that. I recommend that if you have combustion appliances inside the house, that you get a carbon monoxide detector. If you're saying that they're not working as intended, because I know you can get ones that sense at a low level, that's because people are basically dying if these detectors aren't working properly. And you want to have these detectors near the actual source of the combustion. And I mean, by code, you need to have them in the bedrooms and stuff as well now. But to stop it at the source is very important. So again, the easy thing is just to get rid of the natural gas. for safety reasons. Now, if you want to do it for environmental reasons, that's fine as well. But for safety reasons, it does make sense in a house, and I've been saying this for 20 years, to eliminate as much open combustion as possible. So if you have to use natural gas, if that's the only option that you have, if you're in an area that doesn't necessarily have the amount of power that you need, or you don't have the capacity on the load coming into your house, and you can't afford to upgrade your panel, upgrade your line load and whatnot coming into the house, going with a sealed combustion is a better option than such appliances.
That says systems thinking was used on this home to make sure that all side effects were mitigated. That's just not going to happen. So they love product-specific measures because they can just check their little box and say, yep, great, we helped people. Another thing to just consider here is that when you heat up the air and you add humidity, which you do when you're boiling things or even just when you're cooking in general, you're going to up the microbiology, number one. So bacteria, fungi, mites are going to start flourishing, specifically in the place where the humidity is spiking, which is your kitchen. And so now that kitchen is becoming a less sanitary place. But also, it's going to re-eject into the air chemicals that have been sitting on surfaces in there for potentially days or weeks. So you might be making new chemical reactions with chemicals that went around you on the cabinets, on the cooktop, on pans, on plates, from the bacon breakfast that you had last week. So just consider that this is a long-lasting.
I mean, he's telling you on the benefits of ventilation. Really, the solution here is design a proper exhaust hood, use it, make sure it's not causing any other issues inside your house. They don't have to worry about any of these things. So it's like, yes, these things do happen. It's probably a good way to sell people on the benefits of it versus like forcing people to use it. But once they understand, it's like, hey, this is something that's actually good for me. It's quiet. It's taking all these pollutants outside the house. I get it. It works. It's working on its own because it has the sensors. Fine, just let it do its job. I don't think we necessarily have to keep on educating people, like, if you're breathing stuff into your body, you're putting stuff into your body, it's bad. There are a lot of bad things out there, but let's just understand that it's bad, and let's use the right equipment and use them correctly. Not just install them because somebody told you how to install them because of code. Use it. Usually the code is there for your safety. It's not necessarily there to help governments. It's not there to help manufacturers. I know there's some conspiracies out there. It's like, oh, these guys are just making money off all these products they're throwing into houses. It's for your safety. And if you really want to understand how codes work, I mean, look at who helps write the codes. It's not necessarily manufacturers. It's usually people. It's code officials. It's insurance companies. It's people looking at the downside of that and how can we keep our population doing well, because if people die, they're not paying as many taxes. So really, there is an incentive for these local politicians to keep people. They're helping the communities.
Lasting, long tail kind of a reaction process. The systems thinking in terms of kitchens is especially important. And so just beware of when anybody says, oh, I know, here's what's going to fix it. We're just going to do one thing. That can't possibly work. So please do post any comments below or questions. If you want to learn a lot more about ventilation in general, I have online courses available at buildingperformanceworkshop.com. I do coaching and consulting as well, so please feel free to reach out to me if you need any of that stuff. Like and subscribe. Tune in next time.
Hey, I do want to give a plug for Corbett. He does have a 4-hour class, and I'll put a link in the description below. It's not that much. I honestly, if any of my clients want to take a look at it, I'll pay for it. I mean, because the more you understand about why we do these things, the better for me, because I don't have to, if he spends 4 hours explaining something, that means I have 4 hours explaining something. So I don't know what the price is, but I don't think it was a lot of money, because I know a lot of these people do charge a lot for their building science classes, but his is very affordable. So definitely take a look at that. I don't get any money off of that. I'm sorry, there's not an affiliate link off of that. I'm not benefiting from that, except for if you guys are smarter, that means that me as a company, we're able to sell you the right solutions, and you understand why we're doing that. We're not just like trying to push it. There's not a mandate. Our mandate is to build an amazing house for you. And it's also, I mean, for us, I mean, from you, is to make sure that we're giving you like the best possible solutions out there. And I feel like a better educated consumer allows me to be a better builder. I'm not having to fight technologies. I'm able to put the proper things in there based on your expectations. So if you want an energy efficient house that's healthy, that's comfortable, we need to look at it in totality. And it's not a product that is going to basically solve the problem. It's not a window. It's not the insulation. It's not the HVAC. It's how all these things are designed together. Now, Corbett's channel, I'm just warning you, you're going to go down a long rabbit hole, and it's a good rabbit hole to go down. He talks about a lot of things that you probably haven't considered, a lot of things that I don't talk about because I think he does a good job of focusing on those, so I try not to duplicate the content. But I will react to some content if I think it kind of fits into the picture of what we're looking at. So thanks, Corbett, for sharing that information. Very good information. And watching his 8-minute clip or 9-minute clip, however long it is not going to give you all the information you need. Take a look at the full construction of his house, why he chose the different components, and that'll kind of give you, you know, if you're looking at specifics of what part of the assembly do we need to focus on designing now, he can definitely help you with that. So congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. I know it's very long. There's a lot of information here, but I do want to make sure that we're giving you the full picture on gas cooktops, why they're good, why they're bad, why some technologies are better, and why some technologies are worse. Because I think overall the media is, I don't think they're intentionally putting a horrible spin on this. I just don't think they know. So when they say, hey, I'm sticking to my gas cooktop, it's like, well, of course you are, because it's the technology that you've grown up on. And, you know, it does work better than most electric. However, induction is better, as you can see from the video where we did the comparison. So in conclusion, if you're asking me, like, you know, put in your house, and this is what I am putting in my house, we're looking at putting an induction cooktop in there. Actually, it's an induction range, so it's got a cooktop, it's a slide-in range. And we're also putting in reactive ventilation. So when it detects that there is you know, heat or moisture, or there's VOCs in the area, it's automatically going to kick on, because, you know, if my wife's cooking or my kids are cooking and I forget to turn the cooktop on, or especially if you're cooking Brussels sprouts or something like that, oh my goodness. If you're cooking those in the oven and not on the cooktop, then it's automatically going to sense that, start exhausting that out. So like when guests come over, they're not smelling around like, what did you guys do in here? It smells like a fart bomb went off. That ventilation, that reactive ventilation is definitely going to help us with that. So, and I'm going to make sure it's localized inside the kitchen. So the makeup air that's coming into the house is coming in directly, not necessarily through my HVAC and through the ductwork, which is on the opposite side, and bringing that unconditioned air through the house. It's right there. So that's something that I am working on with Brone to come up with the best possible scenarios and create different metas for different kitchen designs to say, hey, if you have this type of ventilation, this kind of makeup air, this kind of cooktop, this is how in general you should design it, and this is how it works. So remember, it's not just the cooktop, it's the ventilation. And if you have ventilation, make sure you have that makeup air. Remember those three things and to be in good shape. Now, what I've done for everyone, and this has been a lot of work and I spent a lot of money on this, is we've got our YouTube channel, and you probably found this through our YouTube channel. We also have a website. And what we did on the website, just to, so we kind of felt like the playlists were kind of clunky on the YouTube channel. What we did is organize everything, all of our videos, plus some of Corbett's videos. We also create videos on Rated Green. What we did is organize all of the, so if you want to learn about appliances, again, we talk about some ventilation. Here's the video we talked about earlier. Here's something I created a long time ago, boiling water under 3 different minutes. We talk about other things as well. I've got some how-to videos looking at appliances. Got this really cool LG washer and dryer. That's going to be one of my other things I want to start talking about is, you know, how dryers inside the house, especially gas dryers, cause issues. So if you look at a heat pump dryer, it's probably the best solution for your house. We'll talk about that in some future videos. So lots of great videos that we've created on here. If you want to learn about countertops, you know, we've got lots of countertops here, and it looks like I need to add a few more because we actually have done some more videos on countertops. We want to learn about renewable energy. We've got solar, shingles, solar panels. We've got a lawnmower that's run off the sun, and we also have something charging a car charger. So again, going to the Builder Show, we go to the Builder Show every year. We're gonna do more interviews, create more content, put it on this channel. And again, we want this to be a resource for you to be able to make the right decisions. Are we going to force all this technology on every client? No, I mean, it doesn't make sense to put solar where you've got trees because the sun's not going to hit it. It's not going to work. But what we want to do is make sure that we're designing a custom space for our clients to meet their lifestyle and, give them the different options. Like, hey, here's option A, here's option B. They're both decent. Here's why this one can work better than this one in this circumstance, and this one's better than this one in this circumstance. Ultimately, you make the decision, but we're not going to give you options. We're not going to give you option C if we know it's a bad decision, a garbage decision, because we know that if it's going to affect your house or your family, then it's not necessarily something that we're going to recommend because it's going to affect our reputation. Because we do or try to be smarter or more educated. Again, we're always learning, and we're learning together, learning from you, learn a lot from my clients to make sure that we have everything in there. So again, thanks for making it to the end of this video. Do make sure you hit the subscribe button, and I want to hear what you guys have to say. So very interested in your take on this, and I've got a poll on our main page. So if you want to go to that, I've got a link to that in the description below. I want to see how many of you guys, after looking at all this, say, hey, yeah, I'm still going with gas. I don't care what you say, Matt. You've made a horrible argument for this, and you might be right. Maybe it means I need to modify the message and make more content in it. Or, I'm going to go with electric because it's cheaper. Or I'm going to go with induction because I like the way that it performs. So I want to hear what your feedback is on this, what your take is, based on having facts and figures and not necessarily policy forcing you to make a decision. So if you just had to make free market, what decision would you guys make on this? Thanks again. See you guys next time.